They said my home shouldn't exist. Not needs repairs, not out of code, but illegal. As if 80 years of brick, timber, and memory could vanish because a clipboard said so. It started with a knock that felt heavier than it sounded, the kind that carries consequences. On my porch stood an HOA representative, smiling the way people do when they already believe they've won. She informed me confidently that my house violated community regulations and would need immediate correction, fines included. I laughed, thinking it was a mistake. She didn't. According to her, my home predated zoning rules and therefore had no standing. The words felt absurd, yet threatening. Neighbors peeked through curtains as she photographed my walls, my roof, my front steps, documenting what she claimed was an unlawful structure. That night, sleep refused to come. I replayed her words, wondering how a place that had sheltered families for generations could suddenly be declared invalid. The next morning, a formal notice arrived. Red ink, deadlines, fees stacking by the day. The HOA demanded proof that my house was legally recognized, or they would escalate enforcement. I felt anger, then fear, then resolve. This house wasn't just wood and stone. It was history. My grandfather had bought it after the war. Birthdays happened here. Mourning happened here. The idea that a committee could erase that with a letter felt deeply wrong. I went searching for answers. City offices sent me in circles. Clerks shrugged. Records were old. One suggested compliance might be easier than fighting. That suggestion lit something in me. If the system couldn't remember my home, I would make it remember. I started digging through boxes in the attic. Folders yellowed with age, envelopes brittle to the touch. Deeds, tax receipts, handwritten notes. Every document felt like a breadcrumb leading backward through time. Meanwhile, the HOA sent reminders, each more aggressive than the last. They cited penalties, legal action, even forced alterations. Their confidence suggested they had done this before. I realized this wasn't about safety or order. It was about power. They expected me to fold, to accept their version of reality. But buried somewhere in my home's past was the truth. And if I found it, everything would change. The deeper I searched, the more the house seemed to speak back. Old ledgers revealed property taxes paid decades before the HOA even existed. A faded map showed the street laid out long before modern boundaries were drawn. Each discovery strengthened my resolve, yet the pressure outside intensified. The HOA posted a notice on my door, visible to everyone passing by, declaring my home non-compliant pending verification. Neighbors began asking questions. Some avoided eye contact. Others whispered support but warned me to be careful. The message was clear. This wasn't just paperwork anymore. It was a public challenge. I visited the county records office, a building that smelled like dust and bureaucracy. After hours of waiting, an archivist led me into a back room where shelves stretched floor to ceiling. She explained that older properties often had records stored separately, sometimes forgotten. We searched together, page by page. Just as frustration set in, she paused. There it was, an original deed, dated 80 years earlier, stamped, signed, and officially recorded. My hands shook as I read it. The property was lawfully constructed, registered, and transferred through generations. It predated not only the HOA, but the very zoning rules they were using against me. This document wasn't ambiguous. It was definitive. I made copies, certified them, and organized everything into a neat folder. When I delivered it to the HOA office, the mood shifted instantly. The same representative who had smiled on my porch now frowned at the papers. She excused herself to consult legal. Days passed without response. Then came an email, curt and cautious, stating they needed time to review historical exemptions. The fines were paused. The notice disappeared from my door. Silence replaced pressure, but I knew it wasn't over. Power doesn't like being challenged, especially by facts. I prepared for confrontation, rehearsing what I would say if they tried to twist the truth. Instead, a formal meeting was scheduled. Sitting across from the board, I laid out the timeline, the documents, the evidence they couldn't dismiss. One by one, their arguments collapsed. The rules they cited didn't apply. The authority they claimed didn't reach backward in time. For the first time, I saw uncertainty in their posture. This wasn't a homeowner begging for leniency. This was history standing its ground. And history was winning. The meeting ended without a ruling, but the shift was undeniable. The board members avoided my eyes as they shuffled papers, promising a written decision soon. Walking out, I felt lighter yet cautious. Institutions rarely admit mistakes easily. A week later, the letter arrived. Instead of threats, it contained carefully worded concessions. The HOA acknowledged my home's historical legitimacy and withdrew all violations. No fines, no alterations, no further action. The language was dry, but the victory was profound. Neighbors who once whispered now stopped by openly. sharing their own stories of unreasonable demands and quiet compliance. My stand had done more than protect my house. It exposed a pattern. The HOA had relied on intimidation, assuming residents wouldn't challenge them. That assumption had failed. I framed a copy of the deed and hung it in my hallway, not as decoration, but as a reminder. Documents matter. History matters. Standing up matters. The HOA never apologized, but their behavior changed. Notices became less aggressive. Enforcement softened. Knowledge had shifted the balance of power. I realized then that this wasn't just about an old house. It was about the fragility of authority when confronted with truth. Rules feel absolute until someone asks where they came from. My home still stands, unchanged, carrying 80 years of stories within its walls. Every creak of the floorboards feels like quiet confirmation that it belongs. When I sit on the porch now, I think about how close it came to being labeled. Something it never was. Illegal, invalid, gone. Instead, it became proof that ordinary people can win extraordinary fights by refusing to be erased. The deed didn't just protect my property. It restored my faith in standing firm. Because sometimes the past isn't a weakness. Sometimes it's the strongest defense you have. Looking back, the most unsettling part wasn't the threat itself, but how easily it could have succeeded. If I hadn't searched, if I hadn't questioned, if fear had outweighed resolve. The system counts on silence, on compliance born from exhaustion. My experience taught me that vigilance is the price of ownership. Homes aren't just physical spaces. They are legal identities, bound by records that must be protected. I began sharing my story, not for sympathy, but as guidance. Check your documents. Know your history. Don't assume authority is always right. Messages poured in from others facing similar battles, many of whom felt powerless until they heard my outcome. Some found their own forgotten deeds. Others pushed back and won. A few are still fighting, but now they're not alone. The HOA never challenged me again. In fact, they quietly updated their policies regarding older homes. No announcement, no acknowledgement, just change. That was enough. Victory doesn't always look like an apology. Sometimes it looks like silence where pressure used to be. My house remains exactly as it was, standing calmly, unapologetically, exactly where it belongs. Every time sunlight hits the bricks, I'm reminded that truth, even buried, can outlast intimidation. If there's one lesson worth carrying forward, it's this. Never let someone convince you that your foundation doesn't exist. Whether it's a home, a right, or a voice, the proof may already be there, waiting for you to uncover it. And when you do, stand your ground. Because history, when honored, has a way of defending itself. Did you enjoy watching me take on the HOA? Hit like if you want more crazy Karen stories. Drop a comment telling me your HOA horror story. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the drama.